Eminences, Excellencies, dear friends. Interfaith dialogue is meant to increase our understanding, our appreciation, and our respect for other religious systems and institutions, and thereby to enhance our sensitivity towards the cultures and beliefs of other peoples with different religious and cultural backgrounds. This in turn facilitates dialogue, and dialogue builds bridges between peoples, bringing us closer to tolerance, to partnership, to friendship, and ultimately to peace. Interfaith dialogue is also of paramount importance in multicultural societies with different ethnic, cultural, linguistic, and religious groups living together, and where respect for each other's culture, religion, and identity constitute the cornerstone for harmonious coexistence. We have heard already from His Eminence, the Grand Mufti of Bosnia, about the example of his own countries, the problems, but the ways to solve these problems and bring harmonious coexistence of the different groups. Interfaith and intercultural dialogue remains extremely important in our world today, which is ravaged by extremism and terrorism, by acts of aggression, by intolerance, fanaticism, and lack of respect for the other. Millions of people have suffered over the years from persecution, from genocide, in all parts of the world, inhuman treatment, discrimination, and extermination because of their very religion, of their very cultural and ethnic background. Thousands of invaluable religious and cultural monuments and sites and objects have been destroyed and looted in the hands of aggressors and conquerors in their deliberate pursuit of ethnically cleansing the areas they conquer by forcing people to flee. This is the one part. And the second part is by erasing every trace of their heritage and identity. The perpetrators in most instances are state and military actors, as well as, and we have seen this in Syria in recent years, but most importantly, paramilitary, extremist, and terrorist groups. The victims are, on the one hand, innocent people, men, women, and children, and we have seen over 100 people lost their life in the last 2 years in Syria, but also in other parts of the world. And on the other hand, archaeological and religious heritage objects and monuments which stood intact for centuries and even millennia, and now are the target of destruction and plundering. In most cases, this destruction, pillage, and plunder involves religious, cultural, and historic buildings, churches, mosques, synagogues, and Buddhist temples, and have taken place in many parts of the world throughout history. More notably, in recent times, during the Second World War by the Nazis against Jewish cultural heritage, as well as during the armed conflicts and military interventions in Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, Kosovo, Libya, Syria, Mali, or my own country, Cyprus. Just to say a few examples, there are maybe hundreds more examples around the world in all continents. Respecting each other, appreciating our different identities, our different cultures and religions is manifested first and foremost in recognizing the value and in appreciating the importance of protecting cultural heritage. Without such respect, without the acceptance and the tolerance of other cultures and religions, without embracing them as creations of our common humanity, as belonging to the cultural heritage of mankind, we will never reach peace, and we shall never reach understanding among countries and peoples. The protection of the cultural heritage of each people is the property of all mankind, to be preserved for the benefit of future generations. Since we are in Rome, a Mediterranean country, and we have heard a lot these past 2 days about the Mediterranean, with an invaluable historical presence and civilization, it is important to emphasize that the preservation and the protection of the cultural heritage and religious heritage of the Mediterranean region, which has been also called the cradle of civilizations, should be the responsibility of all of us, especially under the current dire conditions prevailing in this troubled neighborhood. We need to protect this invaluable culture and religious heritage which is being destroyed and plundered, especially in the countries that are ravaged by war, internal conflict, or military occupation. This is particularly true with regard to Syria, to Egypt, Libya, other parts of the Middle East, and my own country, Cyprus. We all need to join forces in order to preserve the heritage entrusted to us by preceding generations, to enable us to bequeath this heritage to the generations to come. We must not allow war and conflict to destroy the treasures that constitute the cultural heritage of mankind. This is why it is important to place at the very heart of all interfaith and intercultural dialogue the need to respect and protect cultural and religious heritage. This is why any such dialogue will remain inconclusive if it is not founded on mutual commitments toward respecting and protecting each other's heritage. This is why it is important that gatherings as the one we are attending should send a strong message to the world that interfaith and intercultural dialogue cannot tolerate the targeting of cultural and religious heritage in the context of armed conflict. This is why it is imperative to collectively and to individually act and take measures in order for existing international conventions to be fully respected. Finally, this is why it is vital to invest in educating the new generation, and I see a lot of young people in this room, to teach them the importance of respecting each other's culture and faith. The aim is to instill among the young people the idea of safeguarding humanity's history, our own history, as well as the history of other peoples, thus laying the foundation for a better and for a more peaceful, for a more safe, and for a more humane world. During periods of crisis, such as the one we are living today, we have to redouble our efforts and create ring fences to protect the ancient civilizations and the cultural and religious heritage of mankind. We owe an invaluable collective debt to this heritage. If we fail in our efforts to protect it, then we lose key evidence of humanity's unbroken presence. Then we also lose the opportunity to bring together, to bring closer, in a peaceful and harmonious coexistence and mutual respect, the different cultures and the different religions of the world. On the other hand, if we joined forces and remain solid in our commitment not to tolerate destruction and plundering of cultural and religious heritage, we shall succeed. This is our common challenge, but also is our common contribution to the success of interfaith and intercultural dialogue. This is going to be our contribution to peace. Thank you so much.